Okay, first off, thank you so much for being here. I'm Stephanie Lynch, and I'm the Regulatory and Standards Director here at OHD. At least I'm pretty sure that's my title. It changes what feels like pretty often. But so we wanted to have this webinar today in honor of Women's History Month, but also because this really is an issue that's affecting, almost half of our workforce. So I invited my friend Precious to join us. She has obviously a different life experience from us. So Precious, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Precious Diaz. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. I have my master's degree in public health that focused on occupational safety and health. And my PhD is also focusing on occupational health and safety relative to industrial hygiene. So I've had a couple of experiences in the industry, in the role of safety, and now having my experience in research. And my current dissertation is focusing on improving thermal protective clothing for workers. So.
Yes, very good. And I'm sure you, with all PPE, right? We worry about.
So there's a lot of issues with PPE, but we want to tackle it one at a time. So for my dissertation, I'm tackling the thermal protective clothing. Then probably in the future, we'll be tackling respiratory protection and every other PPE.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And I know that anyone here who has worked with personal protective equipment or is a woman who's had to use personal protective equipment, then you know that this is this is something that's been an issue for a while and is really maybe coming more to the forefront now. I know the Women in Industrial Hygiene Committee has met and tried to create some sessions that would educate people about this. And I know they're going to give at least one as a pop-up session at the forthcoming AIHA Connect. Yeah. So just our learning objectives, we're aware that respirators just were never designed with women in mind. And so we want to just kind of touch on that. Like, why is it that,
why we don't have the data for women? Why is it just for males?
Right. Some of the regulatory and standards evolution that we're seeing, hopefully identify a few really practical workplace strategies, and then just talk about how we can maybe influence how we're procuring respirators and hopefully improve sort of like fit testing experiences, particularly for our female employees, but we recognize that this extends to really inclusivity with, with racial considerations, just different facial geometries, all that stuff. So why does any of this matter? Right? So we're seeing an increasing diversity in the workforce. Again, that's not just with women. It is
general.
Yeah, much more general.
Which wasn't like that many years ago.
Right. And women are making up almost half of the US labor force. There are several sectors of our economy where women make up the majority. Healthcare is always the one that comes to mind, but there are others. And then women are increasingly participating in what historically have been viewed as male-dominated workforces, right? So we're talking about construction, mining, yes. And so what we've seen and what I've seen, so I've performed fit testing actually since I was 18 years old. I'm not gonna say how long ago that was, but and probably not the best fit testing. I don't think that I had the best training, but that was in healthcare, that was at a hospital. And I saw persistent failures among women in my population. And that sort of continued throughout my career. So what are the implications of that, of women, having a tougher time fitting them? What does that mean for our compliance? And then we're going to kind of discuss some of the business and ethical cases. One thing I want to do really quick is launch this poll. And can someone again confirm in the question and answers if they now see a poll? I'm hoping that, hey, we're getting responses. That's
it's working. We don't need the responses.
That must mean it's working. So it's, why did you choose to attend this event? Is it that you or someone that is on your team has trouble finding a respirator that fits? Do you manage a respiratory protection program? Or are you interested in the topic of inclusive PPE? Or do you want to know why it matters? I really fought with my marketing director to just say I had a free hour and I was very bored. And so I joined the group, but I got outvoted. Okay, so half of you are here because you're interested in the topic of inclusive personal protective equipment.
Yes.
And I think we just mentioned that we're really seeing that becoming more and more of a focus.
Yes, because it's not just about respiratory protection, it's general. When we're talking about protective clothing, gloves, hard hats, safety boots, and all. And like I said earlier, thermal protective clothing. So all PPEs, we need to see more of inclusivity in them because most of these products are designed for the male genders.
100%, and with only the men in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give a little bit of background for respiratory specific, because I think with respirators, maybe it's not quite as obvious. We don't maybe think about the facial characteristics having as much difference. But so with respirators, the two main things you're going to be concerned about are how well is it able to filter? And then what I would contend is the most important thing is then how well does it fit? So that you're forcing the air through the filter, whatever it may be. So just a brief history of what we know about how it wasn't designed with women in mind. So the biggest panel that we ever did to look at anthropometric measurements was done back in the 1970s. And it was almost exclusively young, white, healthy men. And that's because they were using the military. And that's what the military was comprised of at that time. So there was very, very limited female representation. For the record, this impacts things that you might never consider. This has impacted the development of cockpits for planes. This has impacted control stations and placement of controls. So all sorts of things that have really limited women's ability to feel comfortable in different jobs. And then also to be seen as like a problem employee, right? Where you're not recognizing that it's because of the design limitation that it makes it more difficult for certain people.
And this data that was gotten in the 70s have been used to design most of the products that we're using now in the century. Comparing to like decades, years back when these data were collected. And we need to make sure that these data are updated to include women, and not just women, because even male to male, we have differences in facial structures, body structures, compared to male and female. Even within female gender, like we have different structures, facial, body, everything. So this data that was gotten in the 70s, although there are some updated ones with NIOSH, but are the manufacturing industries considering those new data? Are they including them, or they are still using the data that has been collected in the past century?
They're still using the old data to develop the products that we're currently using. I think that is wild, like mostly true.
Yes.
And I think that the pressure, unfortunately, is going to have to come from the market, right? And that's one reason that I wanted to have this webinar, is because I would really encourage you, and I'm sure I'm getting ahead of myself, but just to make sure I don't forget to say it, but that you should be pressuring these manufacturers when they're coming, they're bringing you personal protective equipment or the respirators, challenge them on what data was used to develop that product. Say, do you have any data that shows that your equipment can fit a very wide range of, like what is that based on, just challenge them a little bit, right? Giving them your money.
Of course. And this situation is, I would say it's not about the employee or the employer or the regulatory system, which might be, but I think the main bias is in the structure design and economics. Like I said earlier, male to male facial structures is different compared to male and female. And for instance, I will use myself and my brother as an example. We have the same, people always say, oh, we have the same facial structure, we look the same, we have the same build, we have the same round face. But his respirator doesn't really fit me well. And I have an example from his sunglasses. I tried wearing his sunglasses one day, and because I felt like, oh, we have the same shape, we have the same face, we belong to the same racial group, everything. And I used that, and after 30 minutes, I felt so uncomfortable because it started falling off my face, which means that even though we have almost the same structure, we have both bigger faces, but
it's a scale issue, right?
Yeah, something is not just right because he's a male, I'm a female.
Yeah.
So, and when something is wrong with the ergonomics, with the design, then we start talking about discomfort.
Yes.
And when someone is discomfort, when a worker is not comfortable wearing a PPE, then there's tendency for them not to use the PPE at all, and you're exposing them.
Wear it in shorter bursts.
Exactly.
Feel like they need to readjust it. And create
exposures. Or they're just wearing it for the manager to just see them that they're wearing it, and when the manager turns back, they remove it. So we're exposing them to more toxic chemicals, whatever they are protecting themselves from. And this is not just the employee; it also gets back to the employer, because now most people might say, because of this, I want to leave this company. I'm not comfortable, and there's higher employee turnover again.
Yes.
So we need to look about that.
Yes.
And
such a good point. And I know we kind of started getting into this, but just talking about how it's not just a size thing, kind of jokingly, we made the title of this, shrink and change. It was never the answer, right? But that unfortunately, that's really been what's happened. They've taken these well-established data points, at least well-established for the, male, white, young, healthy, not really a very representative data set at all, and just scaled it down and said we're the smaller bin. Yeah. And we're not. There are different, while you might see some overlap in the two data sets, the averages aren't the same. It's just not the different characteristics, whether it's face length, face width, your, nose bridge, cheekbones. One thing that I've seen, so I did not long ago, within the past few years, so like post-COVID, I did a fit testing mission for the Navy. And going out to those ships, we had several people come up as being what they called hard to fit. And it was all women. It was exclusively women. And so they would get classified as this like hard to fit category. And I can see how frustrating that would be as a woman when it's really not it's not their fault, right? It's that the equipment wasn't designed with them in mind. And almost exclusively where I saw that, these were full face respirators, where I saw that was this temple depth. There was something about the scaling of like smaller faces where the respirator, even an extra small size, was not accounting for like any sort of indention in those temples. So all sorts of things that can take a role. And I don't know what all of those things are because we don't have the data, right? We don't have the data yet to know which ones actually matter the most for the female population. So just kind of saying on that, obviously, I don't think
it's not about the color.
It's not about the color.
It's not about the reducing the male size to female. It's about actually using the female data to manufacture this respirator. I was sharing with Stephanie the other day. My husband went to the grocery store to get a razor blade. And he went to the male section and he saw a different one. Then he went to the female section because I was there. Then he saw same razor blade with different color. And they added this glow in the dark to it. But they are just razor blades. Then he ended up buying the female one just to, he said he just wants to see. But he got home and he said, no, this just doesn't work. So he went back to the store to get the male one. So it's a razor blade, but they just changed the color, add some features that could attract female to sell the razor blade for female. So in this situation, we don't want a respirator that was designed for male, then color it to be pink or reduce the size a little bit or the cheek and say, oh, this is for female. We want female this. And charge us more actually because yes, it's always more expensive. Yeah, we don't want that.
We don't want that. And it is interesting because that is something that I I can't remember where I read it, and I should have looked up an article, but I know I read an article where it said that when they make things pink, they charge us more for them, even though they're not necessarily especially designed for us. I already mentioned this with the key thing. I just want to point out that humans are very adaptable, right? So we're talking about a lot of women who are sort of making it work, right? Like maybe their respirator is fitting well enough to give them a passing fit factor, for instance, but it's still uncomfortable.
Especially when they move around or
right.
doing the job duty.
Yeah, especially. And so this is what we're talking about where, so the old data from the 1970s, 95% men. The new data, it was 50% female, 50% male, but sort of again, we still don't know,
Are the manufacturing industries using the new data, or are they still using the old data?
Right. And I have every reason to believe, and I heard from a respirator manufacturer who shall not be named, that they're not using the new data sets, and that they even kind of, I don't want to say like threatened, but like stated that, they don't know how much they intend to even do that. Not out of like some sort of nefarious thing, but that they're convinced that the real future is to have these materials that are actually more adjustable. And maybe that's true, but again, I haven't seen that yet, right? Basically, when I wear a respirator now, and I'm so blessed, like I've never had to wear a respirator for more than a few hours, but whenever I wear it, it's very uncomfortable, right? And so part of that obviously is
the comfort
is the design of the respirator not being made maybe for me. This picture is actually an image from during COVID response, and obviously not exclusively a female problem, but there were several female faces here. And so I just wanted to point out some of these were taken even after as little as 15 minutes use. Others were after hours. But you think about what it means to feel so uncomfortable. And after COVID, I think about all the people who, got burned out and like they're not gonna, maybe they never felt protected.
Yeah, it was a serious issue during COVID-19 because most women, you believe that the respiratory protection given to healthcare workers should be for females, because majority of healthcare workers are females. I'm not trying to be biased here, but when I go to the hospital, I see most of my nurses are female. And this respiratory protection, women are failing. When they do the fit test, they fail. And this is supposed to be designed for them, but it's not working.
Well, and especially with the N95s, I feel like, or the filtering face piece respirators, because that sealing surface is so narrow.
Thin,
And so like whatever you designed it for, I mean, that is absolutely where it's going to put that pressure. And so if you never considered the female face, then it's just not going to
cause a lot of discomfort.
Now, I have had better experiences with those trifold filtering face piece respirators. They seem to sort of distribute that pressure a little bit better, but the cup ones especially seem to really put a lot of pressure on a very narrow ceiling.
I can't even use those.
Yeah, see,
they always fall off. I'm always exposed.
Yes.
I don't have a good seal, so I don't even use them at all.
Well, and that was one thing, I'm sure I have, again, I keep kind of getting ahead of myself, but just to make sure I don't forget to mention it. When I was working at the hospital, one thing that I noticed was with my Asian employees, so I was here in Birmingham, we have a decent Asian population, and when I was working with Asian employees, when they would come in, I would take those we were using the cup respirators, and I would take it and flatten out that nasal bridge bar. I think I mentioned this to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would flatten out that nasal bridge bar. Like looking back, I'm like, I don't feel like that's what you're supposed to do. But it was because the bridge of the nose was so different. And you could just see the moment that someone, obviously I'm making a huge generalization. Not every Asian person has a lower nose bridge. But what I saw was that some Asian people had that lower nose bridge and it was much more difficult to fit them. And if I flattened it out and let them then adjust from there, we had a lot more success. So just something to kind of think about when you're running these fit test programs, you do start noticing things. I would be very interested to know what some of y'all have noticed, especially if you do the fit testing. But just bottom line, women's facial characteristics weren't considered in the development of the respirators. So how respirators are going to seal. There are a lot of, there's a lot of really advanced science in the material, but
Development,
development, and I'm not trying to minimize what has been done. But so there are seal mechanics, there are things where you're trying to make sure that you are distributing that pressure. I see this much more with elastomerics, and then some ability to account for some movement effects, right? Obviously, respirators do still leak. But that's why we're trying to do things like fit testing, make sure you have a full program set up. But some of the ones where I've seen, so number one, I have absolutely anecdotally in my life seen more women fail more fit tests, just very generally speaking. Some of the common fit issues I've seen, I mentioned, and I said with an Asian population, but with women too, the nose bridge. Honestly, sometimes it feels more like it's the opposite problem of like I've had some very small, mostly white women who have very sharp nose bridges. Chins, again, it's like you can get some people, some women, very small women who can have like very sharp chins. The jawline, your temples, I mentioned that one. And then the other huge one
the
that I want,
straps, very important.
So straps. None of these straps were designed, well, for long hair, which I recognize even men can have long hair, or even short hair. I'm sure that men have trouble with catching, but women in particular, it feels like when we put on a respirator, I mean, even as small as like a filtering face feed, yeah, the straps might slip, they might catch on your hair, even when you go with an elastomeric to tighten the straps. I mean, I feel like some of those materials are almost made to grip your hair, where it's pulling your hair back into those straps. You're damaging, you can be damaging your natural hair, you can be damaging your hairstyle. There's all sorts of things where, and then also you have particular hairstyles. Even with me, just very minimally, when I put my hair up in a pony, right, like in a ponytail, I wonder, well, is the harness supposed to go over that ponytail? Right, how is that impacting? Right, how is that impacting the fit? Was I fit tested with my hair in a ponytail? Do I need to probably wear my mask like how I had my hair done? Well, if you're someone who gets different hairstyles on a more regular basis, what does that mean for strap placement? What are the implications on fit?
Now we spoke about the differences between male to male, female to female, male to female. Then even within female, we want to talk about women of color. So when we say women of color, we know people that are not Caucasians. So I'm just saying, we have Black, we have Asian, like you said earlier. For instance, I'm a Black woman. And I'm a Black woman, and I change my hairstyles differently. And I can be going for a fit testing whenever I have a different hairstyle. As a Black woman, sometimes we have our natural hair, which is our afro. Sometimes we do our braid protective hairstyles. Sometimes we wear wigs and all. And I can tell you, because I wear a respirator every time when I'm running my experiments. Sometimes I wear it for 3 hours, 4 hours, and depends on my hairstyle, I'm gonna know if I'm exposed or not, because sometimes I use this particular wig and my respirator fits so well and I'm fine. And the other time sometimes this kind of hairstyle, I can't use my respirator on this because number one, the strap is gonna get stuck. Number two, I'm gonna have leaks. And I'm going to be exposed to the toxic chemicals I'm working with. So we need to be considered. And I will believe if I want to buy a respirator, I want an option that's going to ask me, are you a male or a female? Then maybe if I'm a female, what ethnic group do you belong to? Hispanic, Caucasian, Black, Asian, just for me to be able to choose. And when I'm choosing within my ethnic group, and within the female gender, I'm going to be so close. So the amount of respirator fit protection failure that we've been getting is going to be reduced.
Yes.
Because so many times you fail the first one, you fail the second one, you fail the third one. This is money being wasted. And you keep buying, and sometimes you even buy a respirator protection today, and by next year you have to change it. Instead of you just changing the filter, you have to change the whole thing because it's not fitting, you're not comfortable. So this needs to be considered.
And I see someone who's attending, Tim Clark, says that he's making scanned, you've face scanned, and I've heard of this, and I think that is one avenue that it could be a solution, especially if you have a particularly small workforce, that you could be able to actually personally scan each person's face. But I do want to say that I think it's a bigger issue than that. I would like to see some of the major mask manufacturers come out and say, we have run fit panels on this respirator where we've tried it with a vast number of different hairstyles. We've invested in making sure that it can accommodate, particular races or particular gender, or like you're mentioning. I would almost like where I get that it's in their interest to fit as many people as possible, and I fully support investment in materials that will be more comfortable and more adjustable. But just the fact that then it goes and gets tested on those groups, like that's what I would like to see, is where you can go to the mask manufacturer that you've selected to work with, and they have different models that have been tested on, like, yes, we have tested on females. Not only that, but we went as far as testing specifically Black women. And within that group, we also tested a vast amount of hairstyles to, I would just kind of like to see that investment from manufacturers. And sort of, as long as humans just keep adapting and not like making this an issue, right? It's going to continue to be an issue. So I would like to see diverse like fit panels. Well, good, Tim. I am glad to see that you've tested on thousands of women.
That's great.
Yeah.
Another concern that for women is pregnancy-related considerations. Men most times, once they have their facial structures, they have it. They don't change, except maybe they add weight or they lose some weight or they start going to the gym to get. But women, a lot of things needs to be considered.
Yes.
Pregnancy, it's very important. Most times when a woman gets pregnant, they feel their respiratory protection fails because of weight distribution. They add more weight, their cheek get bigger, their nose get bigger. So they need to go back and do a reevaluation or for a fit testing or get a new respirator. And another concern here is that mostly because this respirator wasn't designed for women, it's for male. So when a woman is just managing to use something that is not meant for them, then it gets worse again. Then that's a more terrible situation. For instance, I have a colleague that uses a protection, a respiratory protection every day for like 2-3 hours. And after she got pregnant, the doctor asked her to stay off respiratory protection for a while because her breathing level changed. And when she was wearing it, it's became so hard for her to breathe. And she said whenever she leave work and go to the doctor's office, they check her blood pressure and the blood pressure is so high. So they asked her to stay off it for some days. Then when they go back, when she went back to the hospital, her blood pressure was normal. So then they find like a correlation directed to the respirator that she's, to the mask that she's using. So she has to stay off it. And the thing is that you're wearing something every single day. And I heard that women even have lower lung capacity. I'm not sure. I read it in the paper that women have lower lung capacity than male. So the breathing level is more difficult. It's more strenuous on the person wearing it. So this needs to be considered because and another thing that should be done, especially for people in the industry, or you have women that use this respirator and they get pregnant, make sure that they go back for a reevaluation, for a fit testing. And they need to change their respirator. Probably if they are using like an half mask, they might need to update to or upgrade to powered air purifying respirators, or air supply, just to make them more comfortable and to reduce the whole pressure and discomfort that they're experiencing while walking.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are kind of other considerations with pregnancy that we're not even getting into, but like depending on what someone's being exposed to, it might just not be appropriate for them to be anywhere around it. But another thing I just want to bring up, because I think we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but is just talking about stages of life. So I'm, middle-aged now. You probably can't believe it because I'm so. No, but like one thing that I've noticed is like my skin elasticity, and I do hope that I would never have enough of my skin elasticity like deplete within the year that I would need a new fit test. But one thing I will say is I do now fully believe that going and getting things like fillers and Botox and some of these things that people of an age are doing, maybe even young people now, I don't know, but that might need to be a consideration. I'm sure men do it too, but just for women to be aware and empower themselves to know that if you've done something that alters your face, like you might want to go get a new fit test, make sure that you're still being protected to the extent that you saw from the original fit test. So I just want to bring that up. I can't remember if I actually did put that in one of the slides, but so some of the consequences here, and I know we've made this quite conversational, so I'm sure we touched on some things, but obviously, if you have an employee who keeps failing a fit test, you're getting wasted time on that fit test. You're paying probably, you're paying for one of those fit tests and for that worker's time, right? It's gonna be very frustrating for them. That's one thing where I said, I feel like a lot of women, especially in these male-dominated spaces, if they have trouble getting a respirator that fits them, it can make them feel like they're kind of the problem employee.
Yes.
And obviously also if you're not getting the best fit or the highest level of comfort that's possible with a respirator, then you're possibly having exposures, whether that's from just the fact that maybe you could have had better protection, because even a past fit test, there's this idea of if it's not designed for you, how is it then, is it still moving well with you out at your job? We don't have a lot of good studies. We have a lot of studies, on simulated workplace protection factors, but it's very difficult to measure fit when someone's actually performing their job. So what does that mean? And like ultimately, it could mean that we have adverse health outcomes that come from women not having respiratory protection that's designed to fit them, right?
And if there's more exposures for the workers, the company might be in trouble. Another thing, the HR might need to replace the worker, because when there's high employee turnover, like for instance, my friend, I need them to be taken off that job because of that. Then they need to recruit someone else to do a job.
Well, and you put training costs for
training costs, everything. So it's more money for the company, it's more stress for the workers, and you don't know government, you might get a citation from the government if there's a serious accident, because it's not just about the toxicity, but when your respiratory protection is even people in general, when you're not comfortable and you feel a lot of restraint, you can't breathe properly, you can just collapse on the work, and when you collapse, you can even cause another kind of accident. Not just for the person, but for people that are walking around the worker.
That's true. So some places have, tried to do some stuff. We said that NIOSH has that updated panel that was done in 2020s. OSHA hasn't really done anything to update, but they do still, talk about having, a selection, inclusivity, doing your, providing a selection of respirators. So it's sort of like an undercurrent of, accommodating people.
Yes.
With ASTM, they are actually talking about being more inclusive, and the anthropometric standards, trying to just really build a much more inclusive data set. And then ISO, its respiratory protection standards are updating, and it's very interesting. ISO has decided to define respiratory protection not based on design, but based on performance. So Australia is actually the first country to sort of put this into place and see how it works. So far, it's not fully implemented, so there aren't these testing labs. But I am interested to see if by looking at it that way, would a part of performance be this fit capability? And because with some respirators, it's not. Actually, here in the US, so those FFR respirators, they're not obligated to do anything with fit capability. So to show that you can fit a wide range of people, they're not obligated. Now, I will say the mask manufacturers have some incentive to do that, right? They do want to fit enough people to be able to, have successful fit test, have people still be able to wear them. But again, I just point out humans are very adaptable. We're going to, wear the respirator sometimes, even if it's
just try.
Just try.
And for international organization, BSI is one of the institutions, government institutions that I know that is pushing this, respiratory protection for women, using
Yes.
women data. So they are doing this a lot, pushing it in UK, and we need more of it here in the US as well. We need employers to talk about it to the manufacturing industry. We need people in regulatory standards to talk about it, tell them, let them start using this new data that NIOSH has that included women and men, to manufacture this product. And not just for respiratory protection, even general PPE. We need more of this to be produced.
Yeah, and that pressure has to come from the customer ultimately.
Yes.
It can come from the regulatory side, and I would love to see that reflected in regulation, stated outright. I would like to see that. And I know that some standards are kind of, again, like it's sort of like simmering under it. I know with ASTM, they talk about being inclusive. They talk about having diverse, facial anthropometries or whatever it is for the development of anything. ASTM covers a wide range of products. But another thing that I wanted to make sure we talk about is, for fit factors,
there's minimum.
Yeah.
Like OSHA has the minimum for you to pass, but there's no maximum. And most people always equate high numbers to higher protection,
right.
Which doesn't really work well, because most times the higher fit factors can give you like better seal, you have this seal, you're good, you're okay, you passed. But extreme values can affect the comfortability of the person wearing it.
Yes, and so you're the first person who brought this to my attention. And so I sat here in this room actually, putting a respirator on my face and seeing if by just tightening it more, could I get these higher values? And I could. And so you then wonder, but if someone is doing that, maybe that's what they know, right? They want to pass their fit test. So they're going to go in there and they're going to, tighten that respirator to get that fit, but they're actually very uncomfortable. And so I do see this now being a possible issue where, we do have a certain point where with CNC, it'll say this is a suspiciously high fit factor, but that's actually based more on ambient concentration values. It's not based on anything about how tight you're putting on the respirator.
So it's very important because it's not just, like I said, all PPEs, we always focus more on protection, but we always omit the part of the comfortability. And when comfortability has been compromised, you can also compromise protection as well. Because if I'm not comfortable with something, I don't want to use it. Or I'm even causing more havoc in other areas of my life with that. So we need to consider that.
Yes, it's definitely good. I think I got ahead of myself. I mentioned these.
The international movement, the BSI movement is a very good one.
Yes, and with ASTM, so F23 is the one that covers respiratory protection. So if any of you all are involved in that. Hey, Chris, I see your comment on there. Love to see it. So Chris develops a product that is, here in the US, we have respiratory protection certified above 95% filter efficiency, right? And but there's a lot of space for protection that's somewhere in that 0 to 95, right? That's gonna help reduce exposures to an acceptable level, but we don't have space for that. We don't have space for that with NIOSH. And so Chris has a product that is, when she says tubular, it's like the goes over your nose, it comes down and it's making more like this. So it's not like tight fitting, but it's able to provide a high amount of protection. Like if I recall, Chris, and do correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, it was still in certain instances or with one of your products, 90% possibly effective. Anyway, I don't want to get too far on that, but that makes sense that having, something that's not going to maybe require the fit testing, maybe you can't, use it against certain contaminants based on whatever protection level you're needing. There still is space. And it makes sense that if you move, even if you go to a loose fitting PAPR, right, you're not doing fit testing and you might be increasing comfort, but then, with that in particular, you are getting a lower level of protection. So I do want to say that this is getting recognized more.
People are talking about it.
People are
Oh,
we're
yeah,
talking
we're
about
talking
it.
about
We're talking
it.
about it.
Yeah, we need to know that the workforce demographics is shifting.
Yes.
You know, in the US years ago, I think majority of workers are probably like Caucasians, but now we have different ethnicity in different occupational settings. We have females, we have males, you know, so we need to consider them. You know, we need to consider everybody. I'm not just talking about them, I'm talking about me, myself too, because
Yes.
I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And I want to be protected and comfortable when I'm wearing my respiratory protection.
Right, and I don't want to overstate this because I obviously don't think that these regulations or these standards have gone like far enough, but there is growing recognition in these technical committees that we need to like anthropometric representation matters.
Yes.
And if you haven't been considered, then you don't know what the
don't
implications are. Like you can't know what all of those implications mean. So even if those standards don't explicitly reference women, the direction of that conversation is increasingly acknowledging that diversity matters, especially in the design. These standards bodies, you know, they're not a static thing. They're always evolving, right?
Right. So we have to diversify with it.
Yes.
You know,
So
we have to move with it.
and we should get ahead of it, right? Like we should be accounting for the diversity that we're going to see, for instance, here in the US. We should be accounting for the diversity that we're going to see 10, 20, 30 years from now, right?
Yeah.
You should be going ahead and you know, science basically increasingly recognizes variability.
We shouldn't be stuck in the 70s.
Yes, we shouldn't be stuck in the 70s, especially for product design. We deserve better.
Yeah.
So I want to get it to where we can actually talk about, you know, your specific program a little bit, and then what are a couple things that we can try to do, which we've touched on just a little, but so some common program mistakes that you might have are people not being, so you're not giving them enough of a selection. Maybe you've worked with a manufacturer and they provide one model or two, but because it comes in different sizes, you think that it's sufficient. And really, that's probably not true, because if it is one model of a respirator, even in different sizes, it was probably developed based on one data set, like whatever that mass manufacturer's data set that they references. Another is inadequate training, and I mean that on actually like multiple levels. So like one level is yes, being trained actually on your respirator, but on another, I mean like training them that comfort matters and that impacts.
And we can put that like under asset communication. You know, you need to be able to communicate to the workers properly and let the workers to be able to like talk to you like this is not working, this is not comfortable, this seal is not appropriate.
Yes, I have this concern.
Yes.
I'd maybe like to try, you know, a different respirator that instead of having the harness has like a particular, you know, I don't know. So inadequate training for maybe even just knowing what's available to them. It's just it can just, there's so many different ways of the training not being adequate. And then poor documentation. So one thing is you should be tracking all of your failed fit tests. This is actually something that we just now sort of made sure was available in our technology. Previous iterations of our software for respirator fit testing equipment didn't save like failed fit tests, right? No. And we realized like, oh my goodness, that's such a big deal. Like I get that from a compliance perspective, what you need is that passed fit test. But when you want to make meaningful changes to your program, it's going to be important to note which respirator fails the most. Which one is working. And then document who is failing and specific things about them, right? Like, are they a woman? What right? Like
age bracket,
those, all those things, like track those things, and not because you're trying to like, you know, be mean to someone, but like so that you can start meaningfully addressing the diversity you're seeing in your.
And I think it should be recorded. It should be like included in the respiratory protection program for any industry.
Yes.
Appropriate record keeping. You know, you document every single thing.
Yes.
Who failed? What department? What is their job duty? What's their ethnicity? What's their gender? All those things needs to be.
I see. I see a question from Don, and he's telling me not to answer, but I love it because he said, "Are women tougher to fit test than men?" And like that actually kind of speaks to one of my things, because technically speaking, yes, right? But I don't want it to sound like it's a woman issue.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not
a
because,
woman
for
issue.
instance, if I'm like this and you want to do a fit testing for me, and you put this strap all over my head with my big hair coming out like this, which the male gender doesn't have, the male gender is either they are bald or they have a shorter or slimmer hair, I don't mean to.
Well, and I just
So you
wonder
put it on
how the mask manufacturers are testing it. Like, ideally, we do have a guy here, Booth, our national sales manager, great guy, but like he has a head for fit testing.
Yeah, exactly.
I bring him in anytime I need to do fit testing and actually get through process because he's bald.
Yeah.
He's just got like that perfect round head,
Yeah.
and it's great. But I wonder how much our mask manufacturers even
They
consider.
don't, because whenever I want to go for a fit testing, I'm always conscious of my hairstyle, of my jewelry, of my makeup and everything. Because I want it to be perfect. I don't want it to fail. I want it to be passed at one try.
You don't want to be a
Because
problem.
I've failed in the past. I don't want to be the problem. So it's not like I'm difficult to test. It's just that this mask wasn't built for me.
Right.
So I'm trying to shrink myself to fit the mask.
Yes.
Which is not.
Right. And it is interesting because like I've seen plenty of mask manufacturers say that like you can't wear makeup under your mask. And again, I would just say that that's then limiting, who's going to want to work in a job that, and like also there's just too many people who are still going to be wearing their makeup. Like I've never gone into my healthcare facility and seen, everyone in their natural face. Like I don't think a lot of us are doing that, and I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with that. I think we need to make the adjustment. Like, so one thing I've really tried to do here at OHD is bring our customers into compliance. Like, so I attack regulation on things, not at the sacrifice of safety, but, to actually go do the research and say, hey, is this actually necessary? Or like, what can we do to improve this part of it? Whatever, to actually go ahead and bring our customers into compliance when I realize they're doing something. It's like when you see someone using a homemade tool, right? A homemade tool is a super big red flag for like, what is the root cause? How do we fix this? And so that's what I've tried to do with respirator fit testing, and like where I can have the most impact is obviously here at OHD and in the regulatory space, but just trying to actually get us to where, you should be developing respirators that fit women well, and women should be able to wear their makeup. Let's test them with the makeup. Let's test them with the different hairstyles. Exactly.
Because if you test them without the hairstyle, without the makeup, and they have they pass the quantitative fit testing, the next time they are wearing their respiratory protection on the job, they are on makeup and they are hair, and then there's going to be leakage and they will not be protected like they're supposed to be.
Yeah, but now what?
So females or managers, whenever you're testing your employee, let them dress the way they will on the job. I think that is very, very crucial.
And I mean, for the record, it's not like that's a woman-only issue, right? Like
even for males.
Yeah, a large portion of my firefighter population is men, and I get multiple times where I go in to do fit testing, and the guys will come in with a beard, and I'll tell them to, shave. You have to shave, which 90% of the time I need to get them to shave. But I won't perform a fit test if they have it. But like a lot of them I go, but that you're growing that, I know that you're growing that beard after this test. And like, I'm not saying that this respirator is going to fit you after that. My firefighters are such an interesting group because I've had to actually shift away from saying you should want to protect yourself, because they seem to not necessarily care as much about that as you would think, and go, well, if you shave, if you're clean shaven and you get this fit test and it says you've got a good score, then your bottle will actually last. Say that bottle's supposed to last you, your bottle of clean air is supposed to last you 45 minutes. Well, if you grow that beard, that could get you, it's not going to last you 45 minutes. So maybe, anyway, got off a little on there, but we've kind of touched on a lot of this. Obviously, there are compliance issues here. We want to talk about workplace safety, feeling inclusive, letting people be able to come to you with their concerns, understanding the importance of it. We want to keep our female employees. We want them to feel considered, and coming in and feeling like, oh no, it's fit test day, and I always struggle with like passing my fit test. And it's so annoying to, Stacy, that I can't pass my fit test. Like, you don't want an employee to feel that way. And obviously that means there are ultimately a lot of possible costs to doing nothing and just maintaining this status quo. So what can you do?
you have to audit your respiratory protection program.
Yeah.
Number one, what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong?
Yes.
Is it very inclusive? Is it partially inclusive? Is it non-inclusive?
Ask your employees.
Yes. Do a survey.
Yes.
Let them give you like their answer. How do they feel?
Yes.
Do they feel like their respiratory protection is working? Are they comfortable? Do they feel like it's not for them?
Yeah.
Do they feel like, the auditing is very important?
Yes. Make mask manufacturers come in and show you what they've got, challenge them on what data they are using to develop their products, what evidence they have to show that they are, fitting a wide range of people, to include women and people of different races. Have them come in and make them compete against each other for your business, right?
Yeah, you're paying them.
Yeah, you're paying them. They want your money. Request trials. So when you say, okay, we're going to try out this mask, for our next fit testing thing, just try to push the limits there. I don't fully know what is available in that space, but I know we have done, at least in the healthcare space, some expos where we bring in different vendors and we get feedback from our employees about what they liked, what they didn't, what do they want to see change, and we should really be doing that everywhere.
Yeah,
it's just a good policy. So some of the other things, which we really have kind of.
So we've spoken about this, but it's just that when we are addressing, just like when I said the hazard communication part, so we have to address the cultural and physiological barriers. If you have a demographic that that is wild, very different ethnic group, let them know that if this is not working for them, they can talk about it. Let them know that if you get pregnant and you feel like you have different facial structure, your facial structure has changed, talk about it. Let's get you a new one,
Right.
Let your workers be able to communicate with you.
Yes, they need to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Another thing is, like, for instance, with a pregnancy, a lot of women, if they don't feel safe at their workplace, like, they're not going to come and tell you that they've become pregnant. So you want to encourage, and that's why it's so important that when you have your fit testing, or you do have, respirators, like, when you have that fit testing, for that female employee to not come in and feel like she's about to be a problem, right? Because that was the impression that I pretty much got, them calling it the harder to fit category, and I look over and it's just 5 women in this male dominated space. I mean, it doesn't feel good, right? And that was just the last thing that they needed. And so they're just trying to, I put up here, make it work mentality. They're just trying to be that adaptable human and not.
So they are not the ones complaining.
Right.
And the supervisors, the managers, they need to pay attention. They need to be aware of what is happening. If these people are actually using the respiratory protection correctly, or they are just wearing it in a way to make them comfortable.
Yes.
So they need to be very observant.
So just know that there is this bias, right? Yeah. So again, I challenge you to look at your procurement. Like, how are you getting these respirators? What information are you using to do it? It shouldn't be just whatever costs the least. I know that cost plays a role, and I know that it is important, but do try to, again, ask those mask manufacturers about that. Use your workforce, learn about your workforce. Sometimes that can be hard if you're in a big place, but learn about your workforce, figure out what people are struggling with when it comes to their respirator use. You might be surprised what you could get back. Anticipate, again, like that diversity moving out 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What does your workforce look like, and what do you need to be concerned about? I did hear once that we should have a workplace where we're going to hire more women because it would cost less.
Oh my goodness.
So that's not the best. That's not the best attitude. But I do think we really can see more women getting to work. And I do think you're going to see more female representation in these primarily male spaces, particularly where respirators are being used. Get more models. Think about that. Build yourself what I called here the
diverse fit kit.
Yeah, it's diverse fit kit. So multiple respirators, if you can, from multiple manufacturers.
But don't just use one manufacturer that gives you the same type of respiratory protection every single time.
Yes.
You can reach out to different manufacturers, have different data, different selections, different sizes. And you do reevaluation on intervals. You start using this manufacturer, using this respiratory protection. You have to reevaluate maybe after a year, or 2 years, and see, these people, are they using an updated data, or are they still using the past data?
Or are we getting better, right? So like last year, how many people passed their fit test? So
failed,
yeah,
exactly.
passed or failed, coming up, like, are we getting better results? And then also getting people's impact. Do they feel more comfortable, right? Ask them. So yeah, just make sure you're reevaluating your program, which you should be doing.
And we have a comment from Jonathan.
Yeah, so John Salata has put in here, the FFR purchasers, like people who are purchasing these different masks, should ask those manufacturers for products that meet that ASTM F3407. That's respirator fit capability requirements. Like he says, and I agree, that would be a small but very important step towards getting better fitting products, because I mentioned they have a much more diverse anthropometric data set.
Yes.
Key takeaways here.
It's not just about the size.
It's not just about having those size.
Or the color.
It's definitely not about the color. Although I do want people to have the color they want.
Okay, like,
if color makes you wear something better, if you did get someone who says, like I really, it's gonna really help me if I can not have a white respirator, like it gets dirty too fast. I would like, I mean, there are, I don't want to say it's like very important, but it could change some things. Standards are evolving in this space. Making sure
to evolve with
it. We need to evolve with it. Make sure you're tracking your data. And obviously, whoever you do use, how you procure your respirators, it does matter. Don't go on Amazon and order respirators. They're bad. And don't get your filters off of Amazon. Go to a trusted vendor. Don't ask me how I know, just know that there's some really bad filters. And I think actually NIOSH even just came out with a study that showed that a lot of those counterfeit respirator filters are available on Amazon.
I would say, like, even if you're getting any respirator filter, then make sure that the respirator you're getting, any PPE, it meets the standards. ASTM now, make sure that whatever you're getting, whatever PPE meets the standard. And I usually use the ASTM standards for PPE, other ads for safety boots, for respiratory protection. ASTM standard is what I use. So it's always good to use that, not just assuming, oh, this looks like me, this is like my size or something. Well,
but also do know that in that instance, cost does matter, right? If you go on Amazon and it says that it is meeting all the standards, it's NIOSH approved, it's meeting ASTM, but it costs 10 cents, like that's not that's not true, right? Like they're lying to you. And I don't even think that there's a good way of catching people in those lies. There's so many products on Amazon. Okay, we have like a very short amount of time. Does anyone have a question that they want to drop in? Hey, but we made it. This started making it all the way through the PowerPoint in the 1 hour, so. I see a couple. I don't think
we've been answering most of the questions.
As they came in.
So
I'm gonna get through these, and so we really appreciate it. Let me move this to our contact information. You can contact either one of us or both of us.
And we forgot to mention this. The webinar today is based on our opinion, the research we did personally, not of any of our individual organizations.
Right, like in this presentation, I'm not speaking on behalf of OHD and
I'm not speaking on behalf of UAB. Okay, no question. Okay.
Thank you so much for attending. See, I had a lot of friends on the webinar, very nice. Okay, guys, well.
So if you have any questions, you can jump in the chat and we can answer.
Yeah, we'll hang on for the couple minutes if anyone does have anything. And Precious, I can't thank you enough for coming on here.
No, I'm glad I did this.
Are you going to be at AIHA?
Oh, sure. I'll be in New Orleans and from 31st of May to June 3rd.
Nice. Yeah, make sure to say hi to us if you see either of us at AIHA. Hope to see you there.
I will.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Okay, I think that's good. Yay. Thanks, Craig. Okay, I'm gonna
Mom, thank you.
Yeah, should I
miss no. I think you should still leave it. There are more questions.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Appreciate it. Thanks, John.
John.
Here's a fun story. after doing this a million times, I'm still not sure how to stop the webinar.
No, we're just gonna, I think,
Is it up here?
yeah, I think we just stop.
Here we go.
Yeah, no, that's
No,
stopping
that's
the
wrong.
recording.
Oh dear.
Uh,
Okay, well, y'all all just go and we'll figure it out.
we can
It is
stop
so
sharing.
funny how,
Yeah.
there we go.
Oh, yeah, right.